Ever feel like you need like a little life advice? Maybe from someone who's kind of been there and done that?
Yeah, like not some untouchable guru, right?
Exactly. Someone who's actually lived a little. And today we're diving deep into the experiences of someone who spent 20 years, 2 whole decades in
Yeah.
America, just soaking up all those life lessons this crazy place throws at you.
We're talking about a guy named Matt Shadbolt, right?
Yes, Matt Shadbolt.
And this isn't some, polished self-help book or anything.
No, no, no.
It's a blog post, very from the heart, reflecting on his journey.
Exactly. It's relatable because it's real.
Exactly.
So who is this Matt, you ask?
Yeah, listen.
Well, he emigrated from England
Okay.
20 years ago, and hitting this milestone, 2 decades, kind of made him want to jot down what he's learned.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we're going to unpack some of those lessons, shall we?
Let's do it. And just to make this super digestible, we've grouped his insights into themes, kind of like, that satisfying feeling of organizing a really chaotic drawer.
Ooh, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And speaking of things we love, Matt is a huge, and I mean huge, proponent of kindness.
Oh, interesting.
Not just being nice, but like really embracing it as a way of life.
Okay.
He even calls it the only shortcut that works, which I thought was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this very vivid story about how his boss, when he was going through cancer treatment, sent him and his family groceries.
Wow.
Which is just like a small gesture.
Yeah.
But the impact, huge.
Totally.
And what's fascinating is that Matt actually links kindness to success.
Oh, how so?
Yeah. He said he noticed that the people who, climbed the ladder gracefully, not ruthlessly, were always the kindest ones.
Interesting.
The ones who were genuinely invested in others, not just playing the game.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes you think, right, maybe nice guys don't always finish last.
Right.
Now, on a lighter note, Matt also talks about, learning from mistakes. He has this hilarious anecdote about putting his foot in his mouth during a boardroom meeting.
Oh, no. We've all been there.
I know. Total backfire moment.
Oh, what happened?
Well, let's just say he learned the hard way that
Yeah.
sometimes less is more, especially in front of executives.
Yeah.
But what's important is that he embraced this growth mindset,
Yeah.
that ability to laugh at himself and say, okay, what can I learn from this?
Right. Instead of just crawling into a hole and dying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, who hasn't had a boardroom blunder or two? We've all been there.
Totally.
He even talks about battling cynicism,
Oh,
which is, especially tempting in a fast-paced work environment.
I bet. How'd he deal with that?
Well, he quotes Conan O'Brien, who said, please don't be cynical, and called it his least favorite quality.
Interesting.
And it really resonated with Matt because he realized that cynicism can kind of become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
You constantly expect the worst, you're more likely to find it.
Totally. Like attracts like.
It's like that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
And speaking of, Matt's a firm believer in opportunity being everywhere,
Hmm.
but he also acknowledges, the role privilege played in his own journey.
Sure.
He recognizes that not everyone starts on a level playing field, which I thought was a really important perspective to have.
Yeah. It's about recognizing those nuances.
And this leads to a point that really resonated with me.
Oh.
Matt's belief that building people is cooler than building things.
Interesting.
And this is coming from someone who's worked at places like the New York Times and NBC, building digital products used by millions of people.
Wow.
But it's the human element that really, excites him,
Yeah.
It's really inspiring, especially today, right? When it's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget about the people around us.
Totally.
He even compares, leading teams to the joy of watching his daughter grow up, which I just thought was the sweetest thing.
Oh, that's sweet.
And it really highlights the deep satisfaction that comes from nurturing potential and fostering those genuine connections, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Yeah. Seeing people come into their own.
Exactly. And Matt finds so much fulfillment in seeing his colleagues thrive, both professionally and personally.
It's about leaving a legacy, you know, but not just projects and deadlines, but actual people.
Absolutely. Speaking of legacies, Matt also talks about this bittersweet reality of losing touch with friends over time and distance.
Yeah, that's real. Happens to the best of us.
And he talks about how when he moved to America,
Mm-hmm.
He and his close friends from college, they just sort of drifted apart.
Right.
And even though it wasn't anyone's fault, it still evokes a sense of loss,
Yeah, life takes you in different directions, priorities change,
Okay.
and sometimes you just lose touch.
Yeah, and it's something I think that we can all relate to.
Totally.
Matt even questions whether those friends from his past ever think about him, which, I don't know, kind of gets you in the feels a little bit.
It's that age-old question, right? Do you ever think of me? Like, it's both comforting and a little unnerving to ponder.
And I appreciated that he was very honest about, not always being the one to reach out either. It's easy to dwell on what could have been, but, as Matt demonstrates, growth often involves owning our part in the narrative.
Precisely. And sometimes letting go is just as important as holding on.
That's so true.
He even shares a story about a time he had to walk away from a toxic work environment for his own well-being.
Interesting.
And it's a good reminder for all of us, We're often told to persevere no matter what, but knowing when to walk away is just as valuable.
It takes courage to prioritize your mental and emotional health, especially in a culture that often equates productivity with self-worth.
For sure. We're all about the hustle, always on the grind.
But Matt reminds us that it's okay to choose ourselves, even when it's the harder path.
Totally. And that actually speaks to this resilience that he talks about, this ability to bounce back from setbacks, which he says is something we often underestimate in ourselves. And think about it. He's faced a cancer diagnosis, navigated a new country, even got sideswiped by a freight truck.
Oh my gosh, that's nuts.
I know, right?
So he's clearly got this inner strength.
But through it all, he's kept his sense of humor, his determination.
I mean, he did say he's a Browns fan, so talk about resilience, am I right?
Oh, shots fired.
I know. But you got to learn to find joy in the journey, right?
Exactly.
The hope for next season.
Always next season.
Always next season. And speaking of finding joy, Matt's love for his wife, Mary, really shines through in his writing. She's clearly his rock.
That's so sweet.
He credits her with helping him through his toughest moments, encouraging him to, prioritize his health, always believing in him, even when he doubted himself.
Just those people, right? Those ones who just get you.
It's really heartwarming to hear someone acknowledge the crucial role loved ones play in our success, right?
Yeah.
And in our ability to overcome those challenges.
Absolutely.
It's like a good reminder that we don't have to go through life alone. That vulnerability and interdependence are strengths, not weaknesses.
Totally.
And sometimes those most important lessons come from the people who know us best, even when those lessons are hard to hear.
Oh, tell me about it.
And Matt admits that Mary often had to push him to slow down to take care of himself.
Right.
Because she could see he was burning out, even when he couldn't.
Oh, I feel that. It's like they have this superpower or something.
It's like a sixth sense. It's a good reminder for all of us to really listen to those who care about us.
For sure.
To be open to their feedback, even when it challenges our own, perceptions.
Absolutely.
Speaking of challenging perceptions, Matt does something really interesting at the end of his post.
What's that?
He writes a letter to his future self. Dear future me. What do you think prompted him to do that?
Right. It's like he's writing to this future version of himself, reflecting on what really matters.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he doesn't just focus on material success or career achievements or anything like that.
Right.
He talks about wanting to be more present, more grateful, more connected to the people he loves.
It's beautiful.
It's a good reminder that true fulfillment often lies in those simple things.
So true.
Like, remember how we talked about learning to appreciate things later in life?
Yeah.
Even things like dogs.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one. I love that part, going from nearly being bitten as a kid to being a full-blown, dog dad to Harley.
Total conversion.
I know. It just proves that life can surprise us, right?
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what else we might be missing out on just because of, preconceived notions or whatever.
It's a good reminder to stay open, right? To new experiences. And this openness, I feel like it even extends to his adopted city.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. He writes about Philadelphia with such affection.
Oh, yeah?
Almost like he's describing a first love,
Right.
Like the sensory details he uses, like the smell of Wawa, the vibe of South Street.
It's so evocative.
It really brings it to life.
It makes you want to book a flight.
I know, right?
There's something so powerful about, finding a place that truly resonates with you.
Totally.
A place that feels like home, even if it's, thousands of miles from where you started.
Yeah, and it's interesting, though, because while he, clearly adores Philadelphia,
right,
he doesn't seem to have that same pullback to England.
Interesting.
He misses specific things, certain snacks, the pub scene.
Right.
But not that overall, cultural climate, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's like he's found a sense of belonging in his adopted home that transcends any sort of like physical place.
Now that is powerful.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about what truly defines home for each of us.
Yeah, what is home?
Is it a place, a feeling, a community? Maybe, like a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it's a question worth pondering, I think. And, I think that kind of speaks to Matt's ability to find the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Oh,
Like appreciate the little things that make life, rich and meaningful. He even dedicates a whole section to like the English things he misses.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I don't know, it's just this subtle way of prompting us to consider what those small comforts are in our own lives. What are the things that bring us joy, even if they seem insignificant?
It's those small joys, those little things that we often overlook.
Totally.
But they can make all the difference.
They really can.
Now, switching gears a bit, Matt also talks about, work. And clearly he's had a very successful career.
Yeah, he's done some cool stuff.
He has. But what I find really refreshing is his perspective on work-life balance.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Well, he even mentions, like, this young colleague who, after a particularly tough meeting, just kind of shrugged and said, "My job's not my life."
Out of the mouths of babes.
Right. It's such a simple statement.
Yeah.
But it speaks volumes, It's a good reminder that our worth isn't solely determined by our, job titles or how many hours we clock in.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
about more than just the grind, right?
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, that sweet spot where we can pursue our passions without sacrificing our well-being.
Yeah, because it's so easy to get caught up in that,
Well, especially like today
Oh, I know.
with that whole always-on culture.
Right, like you're always getting those messages about hustle and grind and...
Be more productive, optimize your time, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. It's exhausting.
It is. But Matt's story reminds us to prioritize what truly matters.
Yeah.
Family, friends, health, personal fulfillment. Those are the things that ultimately bring us joy.
100%.
And I think that ties into what you were saying earlier about knowing when to walk away.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He tells a story about a time where he actually had to leave a toxic work environment for his own well-being. And it's a powerful reminder that sometimes self-preservation means choosing ourselves,
Yeah.
even when it's, difficult or unconventional.
For sure. It takes guts to do that, especially when, we're conditioned to think that quitting is failing.
Oh, absolutely.
But as Matt shows us, it's not. Recognizing when something isn't serving you and having the courage to walk away, that's a strength.
It really is.
It's about setting boundaries, prioritizing your, mental and emotional health.
Absolutely.
And it all kind of circles back to that theme of resilience that we talked about earlier.
Right.
He's encountered his fair share of challenges, remember?
Yeah.
That freight truck incident.
Oh, my goodness.
But he always seems to, bounce back,
He does.
It's like he's saying, life's going to throw curveballs, but I'm going to learn how to hit them.
I love that.
Right.
And it's also kind of comforting in a way, because he reminds us that it's okay to not have all the answers. To stumble, make mistakes along the way. What matters is that we learn from those experiences and, keep moving forward.
It's about embracing the journey with all its twists and turns.
Exactly.
And speaking of journeys, remember how Matt ends his blog post?
Oh, yeah, with a Bav.
With that letter.
Yes, the Dear Future Me letter.
Yeah.
What do you think prompted him to do that?
It's a really powerful form of self-reflection when you think about it.
Yeah.
By envisioning his future self, he's essentially holding himself accountable to his goals, his aspirations. It's like a way of saying, this is who I'm striving to be.
Right.
These are the values I want to guide my life.
Almost like a promise to himself.
Exactly. And I think what makes it so powerful is that, it's not just a wish list, right?
Yeah.
It's infused with this deep sense of gratitude for the journey,
Right.
For the ups and downs, for all of it.
And he even talks about how, tomorrow is a fresh set of downs, but he doesn't say it with dread. He says it with this sense of bring it on, life.
Exactly. It's like those downs, those challenges, they're just part of it.
Right.
And it's that kind of mindset that allows us to navigate all those inevitable curveballs with a bit more, resilience, maybe even a sense of humor.
Oh, for sure. Because let's be real, life is messy. It's unpredictable.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's not about avoiding the downs. It's about how we choose to approach them. And I think that's what makes Matt's story so relatable,
Totally.
He's not some untouchable guru preaching from a mountaintop.
Right.
He's right there with us, figuring things out, learning from his mistakes.
And just, always striving to be a little bit better.
Exactly. He's
Yeah.
living proof that it's okay to not have all the answers.
Right. It's okay to stumble.
Yeah. Make a few course corrections along the way.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is that we keep learning, keep growing, and keep embracing the journey. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into Matt Shadbolt's, 20 years of wisdom, what are some of the biggest takeaways for you?
For me, it's that potent combination of, kindness, resilience, and a willingness to, just embrace life's twists and turns. He reminds us that success isn't just about climbing that ladder. It's about lifting others up as we climb,
Yes.
learning from our missteps, finding joy in the unexpected.
Beautifully said. And I think the overarching theme here, the one that resonates the most deeply, is just the importance of continuous learning, self-discovery.
Yeah.
Never stop growing.
100%. Life is a journey, not a destination.
Love that.
And that journey is best traveled, I think, with an open heart, a curious mind, and a willingness to embrace it all.
Couldn't agree more. Now, we want to hear from you, our amazing listeners. What resonated most with you from Matt's reflections? What lessons have you learned in your own life that you'd share with your future self? Head over to our online community and join the conversation. Because the beauty of a deep dive is that it's really just the beginning of the exploration.